This is part 5 of my series on my N-gauge model railway project. Previous parts covered an intro to the project and my background with the railways, and covered initial setup of the baseboard, selection and laying of track, and some initial scenic items including Metcalfe and ratio kits and a tunnel built from foam sheets. For this part I thought it was time to have a look at some of the period rolling stock that I obtained for my layout. Given my family background, I decided to model operations in the British Midlands in the 1930s, focusing mainly on the London, Midland and Scottish LMS. My grandfather, my dad's dad, started working on the railways in the 19th century, initially working for Midland Railways at their headquarters in Derby and subsequently moving to Leicester. By the time he married my grandmother in 1910, he was already driving locomotives for the Midland. Over his career, he apparently drove for many purposes, picking up fish from the coast and fruit from the Gloucester area. In 1923, as part of the amalgamation of the railways into the Big Four, the Midland Railway became part of the LMS, London, Midland and Scottish. My grandfather continued to drive for the LMS until his retirement in the late 1930s, driving various services. At the end of his career, he was a top-level driver with the LMS, and drove the Royal Scot Express. He apparently had an excellent record for punctuality and was proud of the fact that he was never called into the company offices to account for failing to keep schedule. So I decided to try to model something approximating to the later stages of my granddad's career, LMS operations in the 1930s, centering on the British Midlands. I was doing this in British N-gauge due to space constraints, and specifically, given the kind of rolling stock I was looking for, I was working with the British N scale of 1 to 148, as opposed to N scale of 1 to 160, which is used in America and Europe. Given this, I was obliged to source all of my rolling stock from the UK. I've lived in Canada for well over 40 years now, but it's pretty much impossible to find British N-gauge stock in Canada, other than perhaps the occasional used item. And I was doing this during the COVID emergency also, so I had no access to browse hobby shops or attend train shows. So I bought most of my rolling stock through eBay UK, with some items purchased through the websites of UK dealers. Very few types of LMS loco are currently available from manufacturers new in N-gauge, and so far as I am aware, all the LMS locos currently available in N-gauge are in basic black livery, although the LMS ran many of its locos in a handsome crimson lake livery. Hence I had a strong incentive to try and seek out used items in order to get a better range of stock. The first loco that I bought was, in honour of my granddad, a Royal Scot, although I had to buy a rebuilt Royal Scot rather than an original, since that was all that was available. Actually, my granddad never drove a rebuilt Scot, as the rebuilds happened after he retired. So I would rather have had the original rather than the rebuild, with a substantially different tapered Stanier boiler and double chimney, etc., but sometimes you just have to go with what you can get. The first LMS loco that I actually received was this one, an old Lima model of a Fowler 4F060 tender loco. It's not a terrific runner and could probably do with a thorough service, nor is it very detailed by modern standards. The first two British wagons I got were these two, which are Pico boxcars and which came in grey and orange Britrail livery from British Model Trains in Cambridge, Ontario. They were the only pieces of N-gauge rolling stock that he had. I painted them plain brown to serve for the time being, at least. And here they are behind the Fowler loco, my very first rudimentary LMS train. And here I've added an LMS stock wagon for like cows or sheep or whatever, which was the next item to arrive. Things were turning up from the UK very much out of the order in which they were bought. Some items, especially those through eBay Global Shipping, turned up quickly in as little as 3 days, whereas some items coming by post took over a month. This little guy was the next to arrive, a used Ginty tank loco in LMS Crimson Lake livery. The Ginty was a major mainstay of the smaller scale end of LMS operations. Here's the Royal Scot loco Black Watch, pulling a rather longer goods train now that this loco and some more wagons have arrived. I still had no passenger carriages at all at this point, hence the relegation of the Scot to goods duties. And here's the Crimson Ginty pulling a few box cars, no brake van as I didn't have one. Next, this pair turned up, the only new LMS locos that I've bought so far. These two are both still available from Graham Farish, but only in basic black livery. The small one is another Ginty, and this new one is a terrific runner and puller, moving smoothly with less current than any other loco I have, and able to pull a long train despite its small size. The other new loco, the top one here, is a Fairburn tank engine, a mixed traffic engine. This one isn't as entirely satisfactory as the Ginty. Its motor runs fine, but being a 264 loco, it has small, wobbly, lightweight bogies at the front and the back, so it's very prone to derail given the slightest excuse. And here at last are some passenger coaches that finally arrived, though the ones on the right, though Stanier designed, look more like British rail coaches. In regards to coaches, I went rather quickly from famine to feast, as 2 more orders turned up the next day. The ones at the front here are kit-built LMS coaches. They're quite nice, although they did arrive with a few bits falling off them, as seen in the baggie at front, so they went on the bench for a few repairs before running. So now Black Watch was finally able to pull a more appropriate train. This is another little loco that I bought the same day as the Crimson Ginty, though it arrived a week or 2 later. This is a 440 compound, an interesting design in real life, basically originating with the Midland and then developed further by LMS. Compound, meaning that running in compound mode, steam was first used in a high-pressure cylinder, and then, rather than exhausting directly, the same steam was reused in 2 low-pressure cylinders before being exhausted. Unfortunately, this model has never been very satisfactory. Having only 2 driving wheels with no traction tiles and not a great deal of weight, it has severe difficulty pulling anything up any kind of gradient, as the wheels just slip. I also, just before making this video, had it on the bench to install a new wire between the tender and the loco, as the one it came with was an iffy repair and broke off at the loco end, stopping the loco dead, as it depends on the tender for one side of its pickup. The model also has no front coupling and is missing a front bumper, but it does still have its charms despite all its faults. And here is another arrival from eBay, a Pico Jubilee Leander in black livery, although a bit nicer than basic. This is another model that is not made anymore, so if you want one you'll have to find it used. I actually have another one coming, Trafalgar in Crimson Lake livery. The Jubilees were 460 passenger express logos, sort of one step down from the Scots, and preceding the Princess and Coronation classes. The loco's pictured with some trees here just because they came in the same post. I've ordered quite a variety of trees, but I haven't actually put any on the layout yet, as I've still been making structural changes. Here's Leander pulling a few coaches over the viaduct. And here's a train of goods wagons bypassing the main station, still no brake van, I'm afraid. But finally here is a brake van, and 4 LMS coal wagons behind the black Ginty. Unlike most of my stock, these were all new items from Graham Farish, and very nice too, I must say. The coal loads for the wagons are removable and nice in themselves. In fact, so nice that I've ordered 2 more packs of these coal loads so I can use them in other wagons. Here's a little off-layout loco park that I made just by attaching some straight tracks to a piece of foam to have somewhere tidy and convenient to place locos when they're not on the layout. Back are the Bachmann US locos that were the first ones I got, bought cheaply locally just to test the layout. Next forward in green is a Hornby Minitrix Britannia, which I also bought locally. As a 1950s British Rail loco, it doesn't quite fit my prototype. It's slated to be converted into a streamlined coronation class using the Langley metal kit and Fox transfers and nameplates. At front are the Fairburn 4 mixed traffic tank loco and the compound already seen in this video. Now I'm sure many of you will recognise this instantly, or at least its class, since it's a sister of probably the most famous steam locomotive of all, the speed record holder Mallard. This is not Mallard itself, but another Gresley A4 Empire of India. This was also another new purchase, being an example of the quite recently released Dapol Valence A4. It pulls well, but still seems to run a bit unevenly. Perhaps it needs more running in, although it has already had more running in than the recommended amount. The LNER were very much the other guys for my family. We were Midland and then LMS after amalgamation. The LNER inherited the Great Central and the Great Northern, which were the other two railways in Leicester, our family hometown. The LMS and the LNER were also very much head-to-head rivals in many ways, vying for records and prestige. The LMS ran the Western Main Line to Scotland, and the LNER the Eastern Main Line. The LNER had rather an easier time of it, since their line presented far less problems with gradients, and though the LMS occasionally beat the LNER to a record speed or time, the LNER always took the records back. The loco depicted here has the famous Gresley corridor tender. A very low, narrow passage was made through the tender, which then connected to the corridor in the first passenger coach. This allowed train crew to pass between the footplate and the coaches of the train, so a new crew could take over the train during a run without any need for the train to stop. This was done very much as part of the rivalry with the LMS to achieve the longest uninterrupted passenger services and the fastest service times from London to Glasgow or Edinburgh. To go with the Empire of India, I really needed some appropriate LNER coaches, so I bought 2 orders of these Gresley teak coaches. I must say they're very handsome. Here is the second order of Gresley teak coaches, bought the same day but came a week or 2 later. And here is the Empire of India pulling Gresley coaches. I was quite pleased to find that the Empire of India could pull 5 coaches up the steepest, most tightly curved incline on the layout. It does have traction tyres, which I'm sure help a lot. I do feel a little disloyal to the family running an LNER Express, but it certainly does look good. One other thing I came across was a Graham Farish model of an LMS inspection saloon. Now some might well ask, what is an inspection saloon? And the answer is quite interesting. What you can see here is a real inspection saloon. And here is another picture of one behind a steam loco. And here is the model that I bought. The primary purpose of an inspection saloon was, as the name implies, to facilitate inspection of the tracks. When used for this purpose, the inspection saloon was generally paired with a loco with nothing else in the train, and the inspection saloon was propelled, i.e. pushed along the track so that the inspectors could look out through the front windows and carefully view the track. However, there was another wrinkle to the story of inspection saloons, as apart from the front windows for inspection, these carriages also had kitchen facilities and an actual saloon with comfortable seating, so they were also used for transporting VIPs, from railway officials, sometimes even to royalty. When used for VIP transport, or when being moved from place to place, the saloon would generally be attached to the back of a passenger train. It couldn't be placed in the middle of a train, since it had no coupling on the front inspection end. Here's my inspection saloon being propelled by the compound loco. This loco has to do the propelling backwards, as the loco has no coupling on its front. And in conclusion, here are a couple of views showing stock on the layout as it evolves. In this view, the turntable is already installed but not yet weathered. And this view shows the Black Ginty pulling a train of 15 wagons up the viaduct in front of the revised yard area. I'll cover updating of the yard area in another video. That's more or less it for rolling stock received to date. I have a few more items already purchased, and I'm awaiting their delivery from the UK. I'm not really looking to buy any more stock currently, unless I come across something particularly special for representing my prototype. I'd love to get an LMS travelling post office, but though Hornby made a nice set in OO gauge, so far as I can see no one has ever made an LMS TPO in N gauge, not even in kit form. I do have still to be delivered a couple more LMS brake vans so that I can make up multiple goods trains, some more wagon loads and 4 more locos, a Crimson Crab, a Crimson Jubilee, a 3F060 tender loco in crimson and a G2080 freight loco in black. Also awaited is the Langley White Metal Kit for the Streamlined Coronation class. This will require assembly and painting and will use the chassis from the Minitrix Britannia. I've already received the decals and etched nameplates for this from Fox Transfers, who are located in Lutterworth, Leicestershire, right in the area I'm modelling. So a little more stock to come, perhaps to be seen in future videos, but the next video in this series will return to structural work on the layout.